This one's for Tega, who's celebrating a birthday today and cheekily asked me to make an African dish to celebrate. While I thoroughly enjoy African, particularly West and North African cuisine as often as I can, I've never been motivated to try cooking it. Much like sushi, pastries, or even soup dumplings, I find that it's not necessary to know the process of all things you love, and West African food falls along with those loves. In the age where we all have access to knowledge, it's so easy to want to try to maximize your access to everything you like, which means to make it on your own, but I argue that you are allowed to just love a thing in a state of quiet and personal appreciation, and support those who have honed it as their own craft. That's what this food is for me. Of course, the downside is when a fellow creator asks you to make a food of her culture, you're going to find yourself lost and very intimidated when taking on the request. I thought of what my favorite dish was, and I didn't have to think long. I think to the first time I was exposed to a Nigerian dish, and the experience felt like a core memory moment. I was actually helping out a friend, the somewhat infamous Tunde Way, at his pop-up in Detroit. It was called From Lagos. I never had jollof rice until then. But the first time I tried it, my mind was like, this is the best rice. This is one of the best rice. No, this is the best rice. I was stunned. I didn't really have much time to enjoy it because there were cases of spinach to be diced and the black beans and coconut final course needed some figuring out. But that was many years ago, and now I'll order it whenever I see it. So I did have some experience cooking jollof rice in a way. I did a lot of chopping prep of the vegetables and blended them. I saw Tunde mix the concoctions, frying the paste in the crimson palm oil and wondering what the crayfish powder was for, and loving how familiar it smelled to me. And I remember his face as I was about to taste the powder on its own out of the bag when he told me, "Oh, you don't want to do that." I found some recipes online, and I tried to attach the instructions to my experience. I think cooking straight out of recipes is rather difficult without a personal connection to the food you're making in some way. That's why I more collect cookbooks for inspiration and reference, and not really as a way to find things to cook. But I found a few that seemed to fit in with that memory, and I gave it my best shot. It was a birthday request after all. My trip to the market was my source of inspiration on how I was going to personalize this dish for Tega. I went in with the expectation that I was going to buy chicken leg quarters, which is the thigh and the drumstick, to make the broth base, and as the meat for the rice. But then I walked into Gratiot Central Market and saw how good the oxtails looked. I love oxtails, and I know they would work with this. How I prepare oxtails for a stew is a little modernist, but I figured out a way to make the process pretty easy with the extensive tools at my disposal. I made the stew for the rice, frying it, which reduces and caramelizes all the aromatics at the same time, and then I put it outside to cool. Once cooled, I bagged up and cleaned the oxtails, and added finishing spices of allspice and bay leaves. And then I put the cold stew in with the oxtails and vacuum sealed the bags. I set the circulator to 167 degrees Fahrenheit and dropped the bags in. The stew and the oxtails will cook together sous vide for 24 hours. As I'm writing this, there's still 7 hours left to go. But in my mind, the stew will cook and infuse itself into the beef, while the beef will release its flavor and collagen into the stew. I decided against stewing the beef beforehand because there was a lot of caramelization going on with the onions when the stew is being prepared, and I don't really need any more of that charred sweetness added. I just wanted the clean beefy essence from the tails themselves. When this is all done, I'll add the stew to the washed rice and then cook the rice in that. Perhaps I'll add some different spice elements to the rice so that there's a common theme of everything being cooked in the stew, but the rice can still feature something different on its own. Maybe cardamom. I like cardamom in rice. The last final personal touch I'm going to add is how the rice is cooked. I'm going to first toast the rice in some oil in a pan, and then I will transfer it all into a clay pot, and then cook it with the stew, hoping it will achieve the crispy rice bottom that you find in a traditional Chinese clay pot rice. When I say I'm rather nervous about how this all turns out, I honestly mean it. Cooking another culture's food can be intimidating, and honestly it should be. There is identity in these dishes and histories that I don't know about. And if I'm going to stumble through it like this for the world to see, or at least the internet to see, I need to approach it with some kind of reverence and a lot of respect. I hope at the very least I did good by my friends. Okay, so here's how it turned out. At first I was a little nervous to give some to Tega because compared to what I remembered, it wasn't as good as how I had it. But she tasted it and assured me that it was great. Even though that this is the first time that I'm making it on my own, I'm a perfectionist and I will compare a dish that I'm trying to make for the first time to someone who's been doing it all their life, especially when I'm cooking something for someone who's been eating that dish all her life, but I also had it for my own dinner, and I gotta say that even though the rice wasn't as good as Tende's, the oxtails were really good, and I would definitely cook them in this stew again in this way. If you don't have a sous vide setup, you can slow cook the oxtails with the stew in a slow cooker overnight or during the day while you're at work. The recipe for the stew isn't mine to give you, but I will link you to an original source where, at the very least, for what it's worth, someone with that background can get a little bit of traffic from this video. Jollof rice, if I could describe how it tastes, should be spicy and joyful. I really can't do a better job in telling you how it is other than that.